Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14. We are talking about SEC basketball action from Tuesday, January the 10th. Blake, we did a live stream last night talking about South Carolina's stunning upset at Kentucky, but I think that's worth a rewind this morning for folks who missed it. Carolina led. Did Carolina lead the whole game? I think it did.
Yeah, Kentucky never led.
Yeah. Got close at the end. CJ Frederick hit a three to get him close, and then you had a Xavier Wheeler turnover late, and Carolina hit just enough free throws. Kentucky had the ball with the chance to hit a three to tie, couldn't do it, and just it's chaos in Lexington right now. You got fans getting kicked out of games for suggesting the coach should take the Texas job. You got boos at the first media timeout, and then for Carolina, you got a huge win for first-year coach Lamont Paris.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I would point everyone to the live stream we did last night is really that's where you're going to get our in-depth thoughts on this game. We're not going to go in depth here just because we did it for almost 40 minutes last night right after the game. So go to our homepage on our channel, find it there. You can go to the basketball section, you'll see it there. It's also at the very top if you want to find it. So so go watch that. But just some quick additional thoughts. It was, as we said, thinking about a lot of this, the day after, I said, look, I think it's kind of this. I don't know how you come back from this if you're Cal, meaning not meaning he's going to get fired, today, but meaning I think you've broken the fan base in terms of it would have been one thing for Kentucky, and this was, I wish I would have said this last night. It's a bad loss if Kentucky loses that game in Columbia. But because of the way things had been building, to lose that game at Rupp Arena, I think that's what broke what could be the breaking point. Because I just feel like, again, and we said, and we got some people in the comments, and we appreciate the feedback as always from Gary and other South Carolina fans. Look, we're not knocking South Carolina in a sense that that there wasn't any way they could win that game, because they did. They made the plays. We said give them credit. As you said, it's a huge win. It could be the type of win that really finally gives them some momentum after really not having much this season. But, and I know, yes, we talk about Ken Palm and we talk about Torvik and we talk about the computers a lot. But guess what? When we were talking about South Carolina, we were using the computers to give you just more evidence that
Kentucky was a
just
22-point favorite by the computers.
well, but here's what I'm saying. I get people who don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. They're just like, I watch the games and this is what I see. Well, so do we. And I think the problem is what I had seen from South Carolina in the first 15 games told me that it was the worst team in the SEC. And then if you want to kind of take your argument a little bit further, then you start to use some of the computer numbers. And guess what? Most of the time when we rattle off numbers, some of it's plain numbers. Like we may say it's from Ken Palm, but Ken Palm puts everything in, such a nice little box that we don't have to search for every little stat. We can tell you a team's 3-point percentage, 2-point percentage, free throw percentage. These are just numbers. Like these are just basic stats. But the stats would tell you, and I do think stats are important. I'm not saying they're everything, that South Carolina was on track, as we said, to be a very bad SEC team. Because what, Chris? It's like their best win would have been Clemson. That was game 2. And Clemson, as we said, Clemson's doing some good things. So that looks better, But you also have the getting blown out at George Washington, coming off a 43-point game against Tennessee. Those are the kind of things that I think you have to factor in. And yes, as we said too in that video, South Carolina had their best game of the season. They hit shots that they would not hit probably in any other game they played in this season. And all that's important. But by tying in that argument of South Carolina, being the worst team in the SEC, like they were to that point. But now, yes, you can absolutely reset and say, well, maybe this is something that gets South Carolina moving in the right direction. And hey, maybe it is, because they get, 3 straight home games here. And we kind of mentioned that, I think, in one of the things, we were talking about the power rankings and everything. said, look, they could absolutely get a home win against A&M or an Ole Miss.
Yeah.
That was before the Kentucky game, right? So we're just pointing that out in the context of where Kentucky is at, meaning, it's one thing if Kentucky loses to what many may have thought was the ninth or 10th best or 10th best team in the SEC. But it's another, given how everything was building, to lose to a team that to that point before that game was played, as we said, um, the consensus was that was kind of where South Carolina was in the pecking order. But now, they're it's just with Kentucky. I don't know. I mean, I know Cal said that. I don't even know what all Cal said in the press conference, but just a lot of stuff that I think Kentucky fans have heard before, and I just think it's going to continue to be frustrating. And like we said, it certainly doesn't help that they go to Tennessee on Saturday.
Yeah. Stats are final scores too.
Well, and look, I'm not the arguments in the comment. I mean, like I said, they're we're not this wasn't some big stir. It was just I understand because other people have pointed that out before, and I do think it's worth mentioning that.
Well, stats quantify, and that's why they're useful.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, that's just kind of where things at. And again, it's to me, it's the whole picture of every party involved in that game last night is why the reaction was what it was. And I think, as we said, the bigger reaction is based on the state of the Kentucky basketball program losing a game that Kentucky basketball program just doesn't lose. And guess what? You got a lot of those now this season. I mean, again, the Alabama game, they just don't lose games like that. And not, not that they don't lose that game, but they don't lose that way. And it's all just kind of built up. And but like I said, we could keep going, but I just think that we said everything we probably covered it from every possible angle in that 40-minute live stream. We had a lot of great feedback, so I would highly suggest if you want some more thoughts on that, go check that out on the channel.
Yeah. South Carolina rankings. We went over this last night in the live stream. On Monday, Ken Palm 216, Bart Torvik 274, Sagarin 194, BPI 248. After last night, surprised Carolina didn't move up more. It only moved up to 205 in Ken Palm. Kentucky. Well, Kentucky dropped from 25 to 43. Let's see. Why can't I find Kentucky? 44. Which I would have. That's weird. Usually, when you're that low and you get a win like that, you because you are lower, you move up more spots. But it is what it is.
I mean, they played 15 games before that one, and that's what I think
you're right.
That was my bigger point. Is, I mean, at some point, you just have to take a team for what it is through 15 games. Now, again, I'm not saying that's what it's going to be eventually, but you take it for what it is through 15, and through 15, that's all we had to go on. We had those 15 games, and.
Do you remember watching Carolina play at Georgetown in November or December? And Georgetown's just dreadful.
Well, Georgetown, I mean, like I said, Jeff Goodman keeps putting out the stat, but what is it, 32 straight losses to high major competition? And that I think is a bigger discussion too. Like, why was our opinion on South Carolina what it was coming into the game?
Because we watched.
Because that was probably their third best win of the season, was that Georgetown team. And, I mean, that's what we said. And so I think it's more on that. But like I said, we're not dogging South Carolina. It's just we have to talk about every team, and South Carolina probably had the least to talk about. But can they improve the rest of the way? Of course they can. Was Lamont Paris in a tough spot? We said that going into the season. We said, look, this is not an indictment of him as a coach. This is just the nature of kind of the roster and having to try to rebuild and scramble and get as much as you possibly could. We got Gigi Jackson in there and had to just try to fit as much around him as he could. And a team that was going to probably take a while to get it figured out if they got it figured out this season. But hey, winning at Rupp, doesn't matter where Kentucky's at. You will take that any day of the week. And then again, on the Kentucky side of things, it's just, I think you've got a lot more questions than answers moving forward. And, what happens if the Tennessee game looks like the Alabama game? I mean, then it's just, it just gets worse. So when the fan base starts turning on you, Chris, that's when you know, right?
Yeah, and when the fan base turns, and Gary Parrish is fond of saying this, it is really hard to get that back. And we got another fan base that's turning, maybe two to talk about here before the end of the podcast. Before we do that, betting $11 to win $10 stinks. With BROTHROW, you bet 10 to win 10. It lets you bet in all 50 states because it's not the house. Bettors have a fair chance at winning. It's the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. You don't have to deposit money into a BROTHROW account. No deposits, no minimum bets, no need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. There's a hassle-free sign-up process that gets you in the action in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. When you're there, ask to join our private group. We'll let you in. We'll have some fun there. Anyway, support the partners who support us. Okay. Vanderbilt goes to Knoxville, leads by 2 at half. Tennessee jumps on Vanderbilt to start the second half. I think scores the first 9 points. Vandy never gets the lead again. I think we've got a little more to unpack from the Vandy end actually than we do from the Tennessee end. But let's start with the Vols. Olivia Kumwa was really good in this game again. I've talked about he may be the most underappreciated and improved player. I mean, I say that. He got hurt last year. And I do wonder now if Tennessee's season last year goes differently if he's healthy in the postseason. You'll never know, but he's been really good. And you don't see a lot of kids hitting baseline jumpers the way that he does anymore, but he drained several of those last night. Vescovi was good. The Vols keep rolling, and we said don't be surprised if Vandy makes this close because it kind of doesn't matter who Vanderbilt plays. Whether it's Alabama A&M at home or Tennessee and Knoxville, that's kind of what Vanderbilt does to people is play them close. But Vandy just doesn't have enough talent to win games like that right now.
Yeah, and honestly, the score maybe a little closer than it actually was there late. But like we said, you're not surprised that Vanderbilt winds up making a 9-point game because that's just what they do. And we mentioned that coming in. If you were going to bet on this game, we said you could use the eye test of just saying Tennessee just blows everybody out when they're playing very well right now, and or you could use the trends, the data, the computers, which tell you that Vandy has kept every game close this season outside of 2 of their blowout wins, and once again we saw that trend continue here. And I mean for Tennessee, did they give up maybe a few more baskets than they wanted at times? Probably. But it still felt like a Tennessee type game where when they really locked down, which happened very early in the game, it happened kind of a stretch there, first part of the second half. They made the run after the. Let me just say this, Chris. As a former high school basketball official, the one thing they always told us, and I have no idea, everybody has, I'm sure, has different teachings, but the guy that I learned under, he always made sure, he said, he's like, I promise you, the one thing you're gonna find yourself in is you're gonna chase the ball, or you're gonna have your eyes, somewhere else. But when you're the guy that's wherever, I don't remember the exact positioning on the floor, you're the guy that has to have your eyes on the rim. Like you need to, if there, especially if there's even if there's a three, if there's a shot outside, because the ball could do what? It could bounce and it could hit the top of the backboard. It could hit something like that, hit the wire. He's like, you got to make sure you don't just chase the ball. You got to make sure you have your eyes on the goal somehow, like whether it's the rim, whether it's the chain, which, college is different, but like you're playing in a small high school gym, maybe there's a chain or something above that's holding the goal up. I have no idea. I mean, that's what happened there to me. Is I don't think anybody was looking at the goal.
That was the most obvious missed call in the history of sports, and I'm not kidding. Tennessee was going to win the game anyway, but for people that didn't see it, I think it was Jordan Wright was shooting a layup or about to. He's under the basket, and was it Plavsic that just reaches up and just for no explicable reason grabs the rim and snaps it before he takes the shot.
I thought it was Conway, but it may have been. It doesn't.
Maybe it was whoever it was, and the backboard is shaking, and Wright misses the shot, and the commentators are sitting there going, like everybody in the gym saw that.
Like the goal was shaking like for 10 seconds.
The goal was shaking. I mean, how do you miss that call? It was crazy.
I'd have to go back and watch the sequence, but my guess is it was a lot of ball watching. I don't know if all three officials.
Were they I don't mean to be mean, but were they deaf too?
Well, but I look here's that part you'd be surprised on terms of like I don't think the hearing part of it. I just don't know if that's. I think to me it's the again if I had to go back and look at it, my guess is you know everybody's watching the ball or if somebody's watching something that has nothing to do with the play, which again if there's a play at the rim, somebody's got to be watching the rim. I mean, that's just how it works. Like that's officiating, to me, someone's got to be watching it, right? So I don't know. Yeah, bag of shame. I mean, that's somebody needs the bag of shame. And look, people are like, "Why are you
Somebody needed a
mentioning
bag of
this,
shame.
guys?" We're not saying it's why Tennessee beat Vanderbilt.
No.
But that was a big momentum swing because what happened after that? Tennessee went on a run, and that was that. Like that was pretty much the game at that point. Yes, you could play what ifs, and Vanderbilt just had a bad goaltending call. Went in the Missouri game too, and so
Yeah.
momentum swings. It's not ideal, but yeah, I mean, look, give Tennessee credit. They found a way to win that one, even though, as we said, we weren't surprised it was close. For Vanderbilt, quickly, you know, best players
Substitution
still coming
patterns,
off the
man.
bench, but
Uh,
it is what it is at this point. I mean, you kind of understand it.
He's lost. Stackhouse has lost that fan base, and
Well,
deservedly so.
yeah, I mean, the bench mob and everything. It's a fine trademark if you're, I guess, for NIL reasons.
The fan mob is
But
staying out of the gym.
well,
In droves.
I don't know, man. I don't know what they don't see with some of these guys, meaning, like you said, I mean, Liam Robbins again, it's like your normal Liam Robbins stat line, right? 18
It's
points
like
in
they've
23
capped his
minutes.
minutes at 23.
Like there's a buzzer that
We're not
goes
going to
off.
go
23,
right,
get him out.
like a shock collar.
Oh
And
gosh.
he is foreign. I don't know that there's a team in the league where the best player is more obvious than it is at Liam Robbins is their guy, and he just will not play him more than he comes off the bench. They get behind. It is really bizarre.
Well, like we said, I mean, realistically, it's back-to-back SEC games where they've been right there with a chance. But I think at this point in the era, is that what it's gotten to for Vanderbilt? I mean, are fans, like you said, are they happy with that? I wouldn't imagine,
No.
right? Like I don't think that's good enough probably at this point, given where the program has gotten to. And then guess what? As we've said, we've teased for a couple weeks here. I mean, what's next? Arkansas at home, Alabama at home. I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. Both games will probably be close, but I don't know. We'll see. So
I saw a fan poll last night. I think there were about 300 something votes. And I think the choices were what does it take for Jerry Stackhouse to win you? And I think 55% of the voters said that, like, even if he goes to the NCAAs, they don't want him back. Which, like, for Vanderbilt, that's astonishing. That fan base is as tolerant with losing as anybody. That's how bad it's gotten there.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they'll have to change some things to win some of these games, but they've been right there, and eventually that has to turn into wins. And I guess we'll see if that happens.
Okay, I didn't get to watch a lot of the other two games. I watched more of Florida and LSU and watched almost none of Ole Miss and Auburn. Turn that one at the very end. Let's go Florida LSU. I think we both were. I was surprised that Florida won this game. I'd kind of written Florida off. I'd said I don't understand how Florida is as high in the computers as it is. But Colin Castleton went and won a duel with KJ Williams last night, and that's a big win for the Gators.
Yeah, it is. And, I mean, Castleton, like you said, I think if Florida's going to win those kind of games, they got to get a lot of production from him. And, as we mentioned, the numbers have been a little up and down this season, but that's exactly the kind of game they needed. Of course, the 5 blocks really helped, I thought. Made some big blocks, got to the free throw line 15 times, of his 18 points, I guess 12 of them from the free throw line. But that's what we said, I think, with this Florida team. I mean, as you're trying to figure some things out and get consistent production elsewhere, getting to the free throw line is not a bad idea. And, They got there 32 times last night. And, I think that can be a big part of it's been a big part of what they've done this season because, again, I think they're still figuring some things out offensively. But, yeah, I mean, you've got to have Castleton as kind of your main guy to win these kind of games. Now, on the flip side, also helps LSU could not buy a basket, period. I mean, KJ Williams and Adam Miller went 2 of 17 from three combined. They go 5 of 28 from three as a team. And, LSU just kind of hit that. And I think that's one of the questions we've had about LSU this season is we've said, okay, we get him KJ Williams. You feel like Adam Miller, is someone that's going to give you consistent production at times, but it's been a little less consistent over the past, I don't know, month or so. But you feel like he can give you a boost in terms of the outside shooting. He just couldn't make a shot here, and I just didn't think they had a chance to win. Knowing that. So yeah, I just think that's when Adam Miller can't make a shot from outside, that really limits, I think, LSU's overall offensive output. But again, I say that like we hit 5 in back-to-back games in the past 2 games, and they lost both of those, right? So I just think they don't have enough production outside of maybe those top 2 guys consistently. And that, again, as we always say, puts a lot of pressure on your defense. And I just think that's what LSU is running into is their offense just is not always there. And I think as they find themselves, getting into, I mean, they scored 56 points in back-to-back games now and lost by double digits. They've just got to find something offensively beyond KJ Williams and get more consistency now out of Adam Miller and then get everybody else, going. And that's been a hard thing to figure out for them. So
this has been a recurring thought, and I wanted to bring it up for bigger discussion. Maybe now's the time, maybe it's not. The SEC, man, it just doesn't have the shooters that you and I grew up with. And it's been like 3 or 4 years running now, Blake.
Chris, I have done this stat for the past 2 years. I have pointed out that if you go through historically, the SEC has been one of the worst shooting conferences in the country many years
but
running.
It's gone to a new level.
Many years running, it's been one of the worst. Now, there have been a couple here or there where you've seen maybe a little jump, but for the most part, the SEC regularly finishes, I want to say, around 27, 28th or lower in three-point percentage as a whole, as a conference. Like I said, you can find some dips in there. Maybe it's 25 or something, but that's still, I mean, it's not good. This season, 31 out of 32 conferences, or 33 maybe, if you add the independent group in, shooting 30.9% from three, the conference in SEC games as a whole. So, I mean, that's what we said. Like, it's just this league, and it ties into some of the other stuff that I've done over the years, right? I bring up the free throw stats. How many free throws are shot in the SEC? Yeah. It's because, and I know you can, which at times I agree, like it's the way games are called in the SEC can be very inconsistent. I think it's actually getting a little better than it was a couple years ago. But you also can't ignore the fact that there are sometimes teams that just have to barrel their way to offensive success, meaning they just have to take the ball, drive to the rim, and hope for the best and hope that you can get to the free throw line because, it's very physical. You've got a lot of great athleticism in this league. And so I think you have a lot more plays at the rim, and that equals more free throws. But, I also think it's a fact that you just don't have a lot of great shooters. And I guarantee you, if I open up the SEC stats right now, which let me see if I can find these because, we get an email every week with the stats for the SEC. And what's interesting about that is, I'm going to pull this up real quick because I think this is important. Usually they'll give you the top, what is it, like statistically, it'll go like 1 through 20 or whatever, like, top scoring, here's the 1 through 20 in the SEC, rebounding 1 through 20. But, there's a certain, you got to be able to play minimum in 75% of your games and all this other stuff. You got to make a certain amount. 3-point is usually, like, again, you go 1 through 15
like
or 1
through 20. 3 guys who qualify.
I was going to say, this year, as of heading into Tuesday night's games, only 6 guys qualified to make that list. Again, on every other list that there is in terms of, statistical stuff, I mean, there's like 20 or 15 or 20, but there's only 6 guys that qualify. And by the way, there's only 12 guys that qualify for the field goal percentage. That's nuts too. Um, and one of those guys is
Maybe we
shooting
need to
39% from the floor.
move the bar a little bit on that.
Yeah. So like Brandon Miller statistically is the best 3-point shooter in the SEC. And Miles Studi's second, Demoy Hodge, Vescovy, Michi Johnson, and Adam Miller, who's shooting 32%. He's sixth,
Ooh.
32%. So, yeah, I mean, man, I've said it this year. Why is Alabama having so much success? Why is Missouri having so much success? Because they can score, and they can, they can shoot the ball and they can score. And there's just not a lot of teams in the SEC that can do that. Unfortunately, I think you got to put LSU in that category now, where they just are not finding enough offensive consistency to be able to meet that. And guess what? That's been the case for Florida this year too. When they've had some of their games that they've lost, they just have not been able to find any offense. But they found enough last night, played well defensively, and that's a big win for the Gators to get back to 2-2 after the 0-2 start.
When's the last time we had like a John Jenkins or a Chris Lofton or a Lee Humphrey or somebody like that?
I mean, to that level, I'm sure we're going to forget somebody, and trust me, we'll hear about it. But
what does Tremont
I
Waters shoot at LSU?
I
He was
don't
more of a
remember.
gunner than an efficient.
Well, he
guy,
could
I
do.
believe.
He could do everything. He's still one of my favorite players of the past probably decade in SEC basketball. I love the way he played. I don't know. There's somebody we're forgetting, but yes, they're
I'm sure
that number is nowhere near
probably
as
the
high.
Auburn guys when they went to the Final Four. They would have been at or near that. I don't know. They would have been Lofton or Jenkins, but they were probably close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, nice win for Florida. That's a good one for the Gators.
Well, and part of what I was going to go with is there's a really good number of big men in this league. We just talked about 2. We talked about Robbins, Olivia Kumwa at Tennessee is really becoming a force. And the guy that I've really watched, he's been so consistent for Auburn, is John I. Broome. And he did it again for them last night in winning it at Ole Miss.
Yeah, it wasn't just that they won. I thought the biggest takeaway was the fact they put up 82 points. And, as we said, I mean, it's an Auburn team that, we've talked about their offense plenty. Let's call it what it is. I mean, we've said it a lot this season. We just, we don't know if they can kind of hit that next level. But I mean, this game, I was really impressed the fact that they did, and shot a nice percentage. Didn't take a lot of threes. That's what I keep saying. I feel like the magic number I've pointed out before has been like 12 or 14. They only took 14 threes last night. That's great. They don't need to shoot a lot of threes. And I think they played within, themselves, and they didn't do a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing, right? And I mean, Wendell Green had a great game, got the free throw line, hit every one of them. And I know he missed some shots, but I think just giving them a spark too, because I think what we point out with him as well is I think he sees the floor really well. It hasn't always translated to great offensive success for this Auburn team, but I just really like the way he plays. And I think I've always kind of been a fan of his since he came to Auburn. I just like the way he plays. Now, again, consistency, maybe. I know he missed some shots last night, but still getting the free throw line, knocking those down, clinching the game, those are important things. And I still think he's such a valuable part of what they can be, because I think they've got to have him playing well along with Broome to really have a chance to go far. And so I thought that was, essential for this Auburn team to play the way they did, not just get the win, but really, it was kind of one of those games playing out the way you thought it would, basically in the first half. But then Auburn comes out, kind of makes their run and able to hold on. Meanwhile, on the other side, I mean, it's just Ole Miss. I think it's the same thing. Like it's kind of similar to LSU in a sense, in that you just don't know what you're getting beyond a couple guys on a night in, night out basis. And, that's where we talk about the 3-point shooting element, right? This is just a team that just, when you lack that, I mean, they hit 9 last night, but don't get me wrong. I mean, I guess they can make them, but it's just, I just think consistently there's just not a lot to lean on for them offensively. And now, I mean, you look up, right? And we said this is probably
the only team winless in the league.
As I say, they're 0-4. We said it's probably going to happen. But like now, their upcoming schedule, They play Georgia at home. That's not a gimme. South Carolina no longer a gimme. Which again, I want to point out, we didn't think it was a gimme before the Kentucky game. We thought South Carolina actually could have a chance to win that game. They got to go to Arkansas. They got Missouri at home, at Oklahoma State, Kentucky. I mean, that's Ole Miss is. I mean, if they don't get this one against Georgia, I don't know. They're probably still going to be favored in the South Carolina game, but whether you think they should or not, that's a different story. Yeah, I don't know, man. They're lacking something, but I think it mostly is just the offensive end of the floor. They just don't have. I mean, beyond Matthew Morrell, who feels like he has the highest upside, of course, I just don't think they have a lot on the offense. So
we're looking at 3 coaching changes after this season. I mean, it's early, but that would be my guess right now.
I mean, yeah,
I don't see more than that unless there's something out there brewing.
No, I wasn't even considering the. I was going to say I would probably take the under on that right now, but
no more.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, because again, we just had 6, so I don't think there's a lot coming. Look, I don't know. I mean, as we said, we're still only 3 or 4 games in the conference play. Teams can turn things around, as South Carolina proved. Maybe that is a launching pad for South Carolina, not to make the NCAA tournament. Maybe it's something that just needed one of those games like that, just to change your fortunes a bit here. And maybe that can happen for Ole Miss. Maybe that can happen for some of these other teams. But it's just the league beyond Alabama and Tennessee, as we continue to say. It's just you're still, and I think Auburn is getting back into that win last night. I thought was good for Auburn and maybe kind of giving you a little bit more confidence in them. But I don't know. It's just it's been an interesting season, but maybe shouldn't be that unexpected just based on how many new coaches are in the league and just kind of the trajectory of some of these programs. So
yeah, want to talk about NCAA tournament expectations and how many the league can get, but I'm maybe just save that one for tomorrow.
Yeah, let's save that one because we went way longer than I thought on this one, but this is what we do. I mean, as we said in our live stream, we react to every game. We try to give you guys some thoughts, and yeah. So I mean, this was coming in right. We looked at this slate. We were like, yeah, this is kind of one of those slates. Everybody was looking ahead to tonight's game against Alabama and Arkansas. There's your headliner for the week, but turned out Tuesday was quite interesting in its own right. So
we will be back on Thursday morning. We'll talk about Mississippi State, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri A&M. Thanks for watching Southeastern 14.
Hold on, Chris. We will
sorry.
Probably talk about some of that.
Yeah.
We're gonna actually do a Wednesday night live stream. We know we said Thursday, but we're gonna kind of shift some things around. We're probably gonna try to do a live stream tonight after Arkansas, Alabama. So hit that subscribe button, kind of like we did last night. We're probably gonna lean more into that moving forward. If there are just some big results, big games, big developments like the Kentucky South Carolina one of significance, we will probably start doing more of those live streams during the week. Around those games versus maybe on a non-game night. So because we know you guys are watching the action and are probably more tuned in when there are games going on than when there's not. So we're going to give that a shot. So hit subscribe, turn on notifications. You'll get notified when we set up our live stream for after Arkansas, Alabama.
He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. Again, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Those 2 things help us out tremendously. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on Thursday morning.